Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session. We're really excited to have everyone join us this afternoon. I do want to mention that this is our first collaboration. BIST and BIAR are coming together, and we are bringing you a joint program. For BIST, it's our community meeting, and for BIAR, it is their Wednesday educational sessions. So we would like to let you know that this is our first collaboration that is taking place today for our first program together, and we're really excited to have everyone here with us this afternoon. So for today's topic, we will be discussing disability disclosure and accommodations in the school and workplace. And we are joining, we have Karen Kelsey here from Line Connect. And we're really excited to have Karen talk about some really important information. Karen is a relationship manager from Lime Connect in Canada. And today, Karen will be educating us about resources Lime Connect has to offer and to discuss whether, when, and how of disclosing of your disability and asking for accommodations. So thank you so much, Karen, for taking the time to speak with us today, and I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Madison, and thanks for having me attend your session today. I'm always happy to share some information about Lime Connect and the resources that we have to offer to anyone who has a disability, but also this is my first opportunity to share it directly with the Brain Injury Association. So although we've had a relationship for a long time, so as Madison mentioned, I'm Karen Kelsey. I'm the relationship manager for Lime Connect in Canada. I manage primarily corporate partnerships, but also the community partnerships that we have, and to a lesser degree, university partnerships. That used to be part of my main responsibility, but we now have 11 corporate partners. So it's taking up a lot more of my time. So we have someone else who's really focused on our campus partnerships. So for those of you who, hang on. So just as a little bit of background information, I ended the year with a little slip and fall, and I broke my wrist. So everything that I try to do, because it's my dominant hand, my right hand, takes a little bit longer. So if I take a second to switch slides or anything, just bear with me. So for those of you who don't know, Lime Connect is a not-for-profit organization focused on rebranding disability through achievement. And we do that by attracting, preparing, and connecting high potential individuals with a broad range of disabilities, which also includes veterans, for a number of opportunities. So we have scholarships, we have some leadership programs, and through our corporate partners, we offer internship, co-op, and full-time roles. And so the partners, and I'll show you on our next slide, that we have are very well known, at least today. We're looking at adding some other tiers of partnerships so that more smaller organizations, smaller companies can take advantage of what we do. But for now, these are very well known organizations and strongly committed to hiring and supporting individuals with disabilities. So we like to say we provide tools, self-confidence, community, and connections that help people with disabilities achieve their dreams, and we support our partners in successfully recruiting, onboarding, developing, promoting, and retaining all disabled employees. So now here you can see the companies that we're currently partnering with. And so we've got, the diversity is increasing. When I first started in this role 13 years ago, which is always surprising to me, I had a long banking career, we only had five partners. So we now have 11. And so we still have banking and finance, which is primarily where we started, with the exception of IBM. So IBM has been our longest partner in Canada. We've also added telecom, so Bell and Rogers. We have consulting, so we have Deloitte and PwC. OMERS is pension manager, pension and benefits manager, and they also have a real estate division. And then we have some technology. So IBM is certainly a technology consultant, but we also have recently added Salesforce. And then our most recent addition is in the healthcare field, so Johnson and Johnson. So we're very happy to be able to provide more career opportunities in a diverse group of industries. So the way that we go about achieving our mission is, first of all, we attract people to our network. So as I mentioned, I have relationships with some of the universities, disability organizations such as BIST and now BIER. So that's exciting. We're just adding another partnership, as well as some professional organizations. And so what happens is anyone who has a disability is welcome to join what we call the Lyme Network, which means you go to our website, you create a profile, an account. It's like applying for a job, although you don't have to provide that much information if you choose not to. We do ask you to acknowledge that you have a disability. We don't need anything to support that, so we don't need any documentation. We just want to know that the people that we are trying to offer resources and support for are those that we're intending to. And so once you have an account, a Lyme Network account, and again, as a person with a disability, then you have access to all of our resources and at no cost. We also have a group of Lyme ambassadors. So these are people who they feel that they've benefited from their association with Lyme somewhere along the way. It could be a scholarship, it could be they've been hired into an internship position, or just benefiting from the resources in general. So they help to spread our message, whether that's in school or at work. And so again, these are individuals who have disabilities themselves. We also have a couple of scholarships available. So the BMO Capital Markets Scholarship is for students. They could be pursuing an undergrad, a grad, or a PhD, and what they need to be focused on is pursuing a career in financial services, but in particular capital markets. So the degree itself isn't as important as that. Business related degrees are by far the most common, but it could also be technology, it could be HR, it could be communication. So a number of different programs, as long as the interest in capital markets and financial services is there. And then we have the Canada Life Technology Scholarship and Internship. And by the way, the capital markets also offers the opportunity to apply for an internship. The Canada Life Scholarship and Internship is strictly for undergrads, and those focused on computer science, engineering, like electrical engineering, those types of degrees. And these are paid internships. So all of our partners offer the internships that they offer are paid. So once people have joined our network, then as I mentioned, they have access to all of our resources. So we offer a number of workshops. We spend a lot of time focusing on strengths. Disclosure is a very common topic, and I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. Webinars on a variety of topics. Disclosure, again, is very common. It could be also related to a specific type of disability. We've got a series called Voices of Lyme, where we touch on people's experience in having a particular disability. They talk about their challenges and successes. It could be something about honing your interview skills. So it's a range. Also, last year we initiated a program, launched a program called Discovery, and this is for first year students who are transitioning to university, but also will be looking for internship and co-op opportunities. So we have a number of different sessions for those students, and you can still register for that program for anyone that may be interested currently, or know someone who may be interested. Um, Coaching, we have a career coach. So she can help, Daisy is her name. She can help with resumes. She can help people prepare for interviews. She can help to narrow your career focus, all of this to help you be better prepared as you search for jobs, or even search for your next advancement in a career that you already have established. Um, and then we also offer some leadership development opportunities. So we have the Lyme Connect Foundations program, although it's on pause for the moment. Where the person that was running it for us has taken a full-time opportunity, so she's no longer available. So we're looking for a replacement for that. We have the ambassador program, which I already mentioned, and we have what we call the Next Gen Junior Council. So this is a group of students and early professionals who take on a variety of initiatives that support our mission. So if any of you are familiar with Lyme Connect at all, and have checked out our website, and if you haven't, I strongly recommend that you do check out the In the Limelight video contest, which is where individuals share their success as a person living with a disability. There are some incredible stories there, and to keep in mind for next year, there's significant prize money involved in this contest, so something to keep in mind. And then once we've helped them to be prepared for those career opportunities, then we connect them. So we connect them to each other. We connect them to our corporate partners. So we host a number of networking events, both in person, which are primarily in Toronto, as well as virtually. And I'll show you on the next slide the ones that are coming up in the spring, or the winter and the spring. And we've got one of those is next week, so I definitely want to make a point of touching on that. For the virtual events, we use what we call, or what is the Radency platform. Currently Brazen, if any of you are familiar with either one, and we found it to be quite accessible, and both our partners and network members have provided a lot of positive feedback. Not to say that, as with any form of technology, we haven't had the occasional glitch, but generally speaking, it is very well. It provides a great platform for people to connect, either via text or audio or video. And then we have what we call our community platform. So this is where you go once you've created your account with Lyme Connect. So this allows network members, and that's what we call anyone who has an account with Lyme, to connect with each other, to connect with corporate partners, and we have a forum for group conversations. So a great way to sort of build that community or stay connected to the disability community. This is also where you would go if you're looking to apply for a job with any of our corporate partners. This is where you would find all of their jobs. We scrape all of their career sites on a daily basis, and so rather than going to now 11 different corporate career sites, you can access all of them through ours. And then we strongly encourage you, if you do apply, to let us know, and there's a form there that you can advise us, which gives us an opportunity to follow up and bring attention to your application. So, this is the list of networking events coming up for the winter and spring. We'll have another group in the fall. As I mentioned, the one that I really want to point out for anyone who is a student or new grad, or if you know any students or new grads who have a disability, it's virtual, so you can join from anywhere. It's so Tuesday, January the 13th. The deadline to apply is tomorrow. You need to create a Lime Network account in order to register. And if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me directly, but you can also find it on our website, which I've added to the chat. So www.limeconnect.com. And so this is where you have an opportunity to connect with representatives of all of the companies that I already mentioned. We've also got one for anyone who's in London, or if you know of anyone in London, or you'd like to work in London, and not London, England, sorry, London, Ontario. And we're having our first ever in-person reception there. So Canada Life has a significant office in London, and were very keen for us to host an event. So we're co-hosting with them on Tuesday, March the 24th, and that's for students or professionals. On the 22nd of April, we have another virtual event for anyone who identifies as neurodivergent, and that would include, all kinds of learning disabilities, mental health. So anyone who identifies as such, whether you're a student or a professional, you're welcome to register for that. And then we have another virtual event in May for early and experienced professionals. And we're just waiting on a date, but it looks like it will probably be the third week of May. We will have what we call a fireside chat and networking event, which is in person. And that's where we bring in the person. So we have an award, a Leadership and Disability Award, that we give out each year to a professional who has committed some significant time and energy to advancing the cause of disability in a variety of forms. And so we bring that person in, and via a sort of that fireside chat format, that person will share insights into their own experience as a person with disability, the challenges and the opportunity, or some of the successes that they've had. And that's followed by networking again with our partners. So lots of opportunities to connect for career. So the benefits to Lime Network members, so the connections that people make, whether it's to other people within the disability community or to the representatives of the various companies that we partner with, some career development opportunities, that sense of community that people may be looking for in connecting with others who have disabilities, which ultimately I think all of these things help to build confidence in people as they are looking to either enter a career, advance their career, and also just for life in general. So I'll just go back so I don't distract. So before I go into the conversation on disability and disclosure, any questions, any comments, anything that people would like to know? Okay.
Um,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm trying to get into law school. I encountered ableism, um, well, in terms of attitudes by the school,
Mm-hmm.
and also how to navigate that. They basically told me don't even bother because my brain injury, which means I can't tolerate bright lights indoors or noise and cross talking. So I just felt like disturbed by that because it's like you claim you're accommodating students, but when you have a brain injury, which is complex like mine, right? They're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, we don't have virtual options. You should reconsider your career. If you cannot do the LSAT, you should also reconsider that and things like that. I was just like, that is so rude. Yeah. And when I didn't have a choice but to disclose my disability in order to get accommodated, in real life right? Or even formally like a work setting, it's like people don't believe you because they cannot see it.
Right.
And it's also frustrating because it's a new injury when it happened, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know what I need. I don't know how long this thing would take. It's extremely frustrating. And I wasn't trying to be difficult, but they were being difficult. It's like, okay, you have a doctor's note. Why can't you start the process? They kept saying they want to see the updated status because it's an ongoing progression, right? So then it's like you don't have an end date, so you can't tell them when it's going to end or even how to get accommodated because they keep on needing a quote unquote updated note. So we just kept going in a circle for several months when I
This
should have
was
started right away, right?
this was through your application to law school.
No, I went to the open house, and before that, I even
Oh.
spoke with a student liaison who's
Mm-hmm.
a 2L student, right? To
Yeah.
ask about what would I need, what's it like, what are my chances if I have a disability. Plus, not only that, I'm a mature student, and just many kind of questions if you're trying to figure out, do you want to forego your career that you have accommodation finally for, that you fought so hard for,
Yeah.
and consider law school, or it's not realistic because of all the barriers and also, when you have all these young people with, high LSAT scores and all that, like, do you even stand a chance? And they couldn't even give me something as simple as stats as to how many people they accept with disabilities or as mature students or that intersection, right? But that was beside the point. It was more like, don't even bother. You should reconsider your life if you cannot handle these basic application process. Like that's the message I got out of it. Like they could have
Well,
been a bit more compassionate, but also
right.
understanding and accommodating, right?
Right, right. Yeah. Well, and I'm sorry that was your experience. And I'm also sorry to say that it's not the first time I've heard that. I
Yeah.
think some of the older professions in particular are, and that I would say are probably more conservative. We hear that from. But if you're actually seriously considering applying to law school, you may want to also talk to somebody in the accommodations. Um, it could every university has a different name for it, but the Office for
Yeah.
Students with Disabilities, and just talk to them because I wouldn't let whatever that feedback is, if that's really what you want to do, I wouldn't let that, discourage you. Not that it would be easy. It certainly would not. There would certainly be challenges. I don't think it's an easy profession anyway, but I wouldn't let that discourage you. And unfortunately, everyone at an open house, you would like to think that people there have enough information to understand what accommodations, or at least that people might require accommodations, but it doesn't sound like the person that you spoke to really did. And I think that if you had a conversation with somebody else who was a little bit better educated in that regard, you might get further. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, because even their system where they break it up, the course load for students with accommodation needs
Mm-hmm.
wasn't even inclusive. It was like you have to have it under our schedule, not your schedule. Like I go, maybe I need to take 2 courses per semester. They're like, no, you need to do it within a year and a half, like meaning like taking summer. So it's basically 3 semester. I
Or
go,
check out a
that's
different law school. That's
uh
another. I don't know, but
I don't know, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I know that there are some of these situations can be quite challenging, so I think one other person has their hand up.
Yes, hi. My name is Swapna, Karen. I had a similar question when I approached a college. I wanted to know what accommodations would be available for the course so that I could select, the schedule and see if I can even, manage it. But they said that I need to first enroll with the accommodations office, and only then somebody from that office can meet me. Now, the challenge there is that they need the medical documentation, and I just don't want to keep sending my medical documentation to all the colleges and universities just to know what is possible, right? So
Right,
they're not willing to, you know, assign a staff. It's probably part of the, process. but that's a barrier because I don't want to share my medical documentation to everyone every
No,
time.
no.
And they say that they cannot assign an accommodation staff without a student enrollment number because
I ha
that is their protocol.
I had the same problem with the LSAT committee. They're like, no, you need
So
to
now,
sign for the test and then we'll talk to you. I'm like, that's crazy.
but to get the enrollment number, then I'll have to, enroll in the program for which I have to pay some deposit and fees. So I'm really having a tough time navigating this system because I'm trying to figure out how do I know the course schedule and how much of how many
Right,
subjects can I take. But they say that unless I enroll and have a student number, the accommodations officer, staff cannot be assigned to me.
right. Yeah, well,
So
and I don't think you were looking for someone. Doesn't sound like you were looking to have someone assigned to you. You're just making a general inquiry. So I think you need to go, or at least I would suggest you go back and and have a conversation with somebody else. So whether it's that person's manager, I think sometimes you just, and I know this, going through this experience with my grandson at college, that it's difficult. Everybody doesn't have the same level of education or information. You have to find the right person, and so I'm sorry that's the experience, but that would be my suggestion, is to find
so
somebody
in
else.
in this case, I went to the college and I met a couple of people, right, from the department as well as, I
Okay,
got frustrated talking to people online. I
right,
went there, I met somebody from the department, I met the admissions office, and so they said they could help me by connecting me to ALS again. And the ALS person responded to me, but they were asking me to register. So that is the process of the college. So I don't know how to go about it because now I'm having to give my medical documentation for every program that I want to apply to. And I don't feel very safe about it
no,
because it's a privacy issue.
yeah,
So it's
I,
not
I
just disclosing the disability. They also want, they want you to submit the supporting documents.
right,
Only then they will talk to you about, the
right.
course or what is the course load.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have a solution for that. I don't know what else to suggest. So, um, again, unless talk to somebody else at the university or college, I that's not one that I know how to solve.
Okay. And the second question I had was, you mentioned that the networking events for undergrad was for undergraduate and postgraduate students, but can we as mature students, with previous work experience, been out of school for quite a while, can we access those networking events
If
for Lime Connect?
if it's relevant, yes. So the one that's next week is specifically for students and new grads, but we will have
Mhm.
one for professionals in, what did I
But
say,
that's in
May?
London, I guess.
No, no, there's one in May as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do
Yeah.
you consider students from continuing education for these events, or is it only undergrad?
No, anyone can apply. So as long as you have a disability, you can apply. The majority of people that, so for example, the event next week, the majority of people that apply will be university students or graduates from a university degree, recent grads. But you're still welcome to apply if you're attending, a college or a diploma program.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So disability. So what are we talking about when we talk about disability? So I mentioned to you that it's a very broad range of disabilities that we consider. So it's anything from physical to, so it could be mobility, it could be hearing, vision, it could be chronic health, it could be learning, it could be anxiety, depression. So it's a very broad range. And so, really, anyone who has a disability is welcome to join the Lyme Network. And just a little bit, just for your information, so the uh, whether whether it just is, or I was going to say unfortunately, but it just is that um, disability seems to be on the rise, and I think a lot of that is due to anxiety and depression. I think a lot of that surfaced during COVID, during the pandemic. But I also think that the world that we live in can be very stressful, and so I think that's really added to it. But this most recent survey, which was in 2022, so it's already, just over 3 years old, compared to the one prior to that, which was 5 years before. The increase in individuals who identified as having a disability went up almost 5%. So, and that's, you can see the breakdown across Canada, but just of note, a point of interest. The other thing that we know is that on campus, it's about 1 in 5 students, and in the corporate world, so white collar employees in particular, approximately 1 in 3. So we know that disability is prevalent in our community, in our society. I'm sure you yourselves identify as someone who has a disability, but you probably also know family and friends who will have a disability. And as somebody already mentioned, some disabilities are visible, but a lot of them are not. And so I think that makes it even the challenge of disclosure, requesting accommodations can be even more difficult when it's not obvious. So things like learning and attention issues, various medical conditions, mental health, and a number of others. And we know that disability affects people in quite a number of ways. So it can affect the way that they learn, the way they take in and also process information. It can affect their intellectual capacity. It can affect their mental health, so anxiety, depression, a number of mental health disorders. It can affect the way that they communicate. It could be, a speech disorder, or it could just, someone who is on the autism spectrum and has difficulty communicating with other people. It can be physical, so again, mobility related or chronic health. Sensory, it could be hearing, vision. It can affect the way that people interact with others, so social relationships. So someone who has social anxiety, as an example, has difficulty interacting with others. Someone who's on the autism spectrum may have difficulty with social relationships. But the other thing that really determines how a person's disability affects them are the barriers that we have in our communities, in society in general, in the workplace, and in school. And so these all can have an impact. So technology, as an example, while if you use assistive technology, it can be very helpful. If you're using a program software that isn't compatible with a system that you also need to use, so this would quite often be, or could very well be the case in an employment setting, then that's going to be a hindrance. And so, that's a barrier. Physical space can be a barrier. So all buildings are not set up for people with mobility issues, as an example, or workspace. So open workspace isn't conducive for some people to work easily and stay focused. There are policies and practices in place at school, in the workplace, in society in general, that even though they are not necessarily intentionally discriminatory, they end up causing challenges, additional challenges, and unnecessary challenges for people with disabilities. Also, the assumptions that people make. So, we all have assumptions. I mean, it's the way that we get through life. We would get almost nothing done if we had to stop and think about every little thing that we have to do, every aspect of our environment. And part of that is what we think people can and cannot do. And those assumptions are not always correct. So again, that can be a barrier. The language that we use, the actions that we take in interacting with people with disabilities, are they inclusive? What is the culture that we are creating? So it's there are many barriers. that can impact the way that a person's disability affects them.
Also, social norms is
Mm-hmm.
also ableist. So, for example, please turn on your camera. I'm like, but the have what do you call it? When you have a brain injury, visual movements is really impactful,
Right.
and people don't like that. Or if you're having to be in person in the meeting, and then you're like, please turn off the lights. Everyone freaks out. Literally, they freak out. As soon as a new person comes in the room, they all turn it on, and we're like, no, turn it off. And it's every single time. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's right. That's, again, the practices that we have can be a barrier because, when we establish practices, we aren't necessarily thinking about people who have particular sensitivities. So then when we think about disability as it relates to the career search, we know that people can be quite intimidated by the standard corporate recruiting process. And so this is a quote from one of our network members who said that in school there are a lot of structures of support, although it sounds like a couple of you haven't found that yet. Professionally, it's been a delicate balance between asking for support and showing it is not a hindrance, because when people ask for an accommodation or disclose, they're not looking for it to be a burden on someone. They're just looking for the support that they need in order to be successful. So that leads to the decision whether to disclose or not, and if so, when and how. So the whether, when, and how. So first of all, should you disclose? So we know that people have a number of concerns and they're legitimate. They could be based on their own experience or what others have shared with them. And so I'm going to go through some of those concerns and provide some quotes that we've received from some of our network members. So one, the belief that people will judge me before they know me. I tell people only what is relevant to the situation. I try to tell them as little as possible because I know they'll think of me as different and potentially inept. 2, the fear of negative reactions or perceptions. Having to ask for an accommodation always made it seem like my results weren't all based on my talent, like there was an asterisk next to my name. Like, oh yes, well, you were only able to accomplish that because, you were given additional support or something to that effect. Concerns that it will impact my career. Always requesting accommodations and disclosing can be hard. It is like you are always explaining and answering questions and receiving either petty remarks or hero remarks about how you do what you do. So, as you only were able to do that, it's like, oh, it's amazing that you can do that, when it's not amazing. It's just, given the right supports, you're able to do it. And some people just don't know how to have the conversation. So there aren't many opportunities in the workplace where a discussion of vulnerability takes place in a frank manner. So we know that in the workplace, the tendency is for people to want to put their best selves forward. They don't want to talk about challenges or weaknesses or additional support. So that it can be difficult. But we also know that disclosure can lead to success. And that's really not the only reason why people will disclose, but it is a key reason for people to disclose. And then, of course, if they're looking to get an accommodation. So these are some examples of accommodations that people have received. So this one talks about my conversation resulted in getting the technology I need. I'm able to do my job better and faster. So you can see one person using a smart pen. So they can record, take notes in a meeting, record them, and then upload that into a tablet or some other device, and incorporate that into a presentation. Or so it would be a great tool for me to use, except for the writing part right now, for my broken wrist. One person wearing headphones, and those could be noise canceling headphones to help her block out the noise around her, especially in an open work environment or in school. People are working in areas where there's lots of noise around, but it could also be someone listening to music, which may also help them focus. And then in the lower left-hand corner, so this is someone using a screen reader. And primarily that would be someone with who is blind or has low vision, but it could also be someone who who doesn't take in information easily when they're reading it. So, it could help someone with dyslexia as an example. A couple more examples. So, when I needed a flexible schedule for physical therapy, I experienced empathy and understanding, which helped me reframe my view, realizing that everyone has their own needs in the workplace. And that, it's true that that flexibility and support are required not just for people who have disabilities, that people may need to take appointments and people may need, there could be elder care or child care needs. So lots of different opportunities. And just one second, Kim, I'll let you let you comment or question. And then the last one here is, and you can see the person who is appears to either be having a headache or just a bad day, not feeling the greatest. Now my manager has explicitly given me a code word to use whenever I'm having a bad day. So rather than having to explain what her situation is, this is something that's recurring. She's already had the conversation with her manager, and so all she has to do is use the whatever the word is, and her manager knows she needs to take a break, whether it's, she needs to go for a walk or she needs to shut her computer down, whatever it is she needs to do. So, Kim, go ahead.
Um, when I ask for accommodations, sometimes I feel like I need to divulge my condition,
Mm-hmm.
especially, for example, if I'm navigating the mall, if I'm trying to do something in the store, I'll be like, I have a brain injury. Can you please lower the volume of the music? And they refuse to. And so it's just like frustrating, like when you're asking for accommodations, it's not respected. You would hope the world does comply, but they're like, no, we don't have to. Um, Even when I was working in a vaccine clinic, and clients had problems hearing because of plexiglass, people have masks, or they're hard of hearing or whatever level of hearing impairment they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I said in a team huddle that we need to lower the volume so people can talk. I kid you not, one girl said no, because that would basically interfere with her enjoyment of working there, which she basically disappears whenever they're like, during the day, like doesn't do actual work. And then when I actually, on another incident, after having that announcement, people were passive aggressive with me when I said, please lower the volume so that other clients can actually be able to be heard and things like that. So I'm basically the fun police.
So, and
And these are
again,
nurses and these are like nurses or just like, like support worker at the vaccine clinic that were support in terms of like admin staff or whatever. Like
right,
we're
yeah,
supposed to be quote unquote healthcare workers in
right,
essence, right?
yeah.
And I go, you would think in a medical condition, um, industry or whatever you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
that people would be more accepting of it because they see disabled people, they hear them, they diagnose them and this and that, whatever. No, it
Yeah,
bothers their quality of work in terms of, I'm not enjoying this place because it's boring. It's not like a club for me. I'm like, what the heck is that? It's just like, who the heck are you prioritizing? Like, that's the wrong attitude.
yeah, no, you'd like to think people would be more empathetic, but it also tells me, well, suggests to me, because I think I don't think most people are intentionally dismissive of others, or you know, they just don't care. I think it's really more a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding. And so I've got a couple examples a little further along, of metaphors that people can use, because I think that's part of the problem, is that they really don't appreciate the experience that other people have. And so they, they think it's more like a preference. Like the one person says, well, like I like to have the music loud. It helps me enjoy my job. Not really understanding that for somebody else, that might be the difference between them getting the
Wrong vaccine, or
right,
saying I have a certain medical condition that
right,
I cannot take a certain vaccine
right.
brand.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, yeah, hopefully the metaphors will give you some thoughts. Um, the other thing that we know is that people with disabilities possess a number of unique strengths and skills. So on the strengths side, that someone who has maybe poor executive functioning and has therefore developed a system and has put certain practices in place to help them be organized, could actually become an expert in organization because they've learned to do it, specifically related to their disability. Or someone who has recurring health issues and they don't know when they might flare up, but they need to plan, long term to accomplish something by a certain date. And so they become very well organized in being able and allowing them or enabling them to be successful. We know that strength and resilience and determination are very common in people who have disabilities because they've had to try and try and try again in order to get something done successfully. Someone who needs to delegate tasks because they are not able to do certain things themselves will develop leadership skills. Problem solving, we know that a lot of people who have disabilities are very creative problem solvers because they can't do things that people without disabilities do. They can't do them in the same way, so they're always looking for creative ways to get things done. And so problem solving becomes a strength. Strategic thinking, being able to take in the environment and all the resources around you, and then be able to apply them in various scenarios. Again, people who are living in a situation where they have to explore all the resources that are available to them because they can't get through daily life in the way that others can. So lots of strengths that come with disability. Same with specialized skills. We know that people who have autism as an example, are able to see patterns and systems. Their brains automatically are able to identify them in ways that other people can't. So it's something that's innate that that it just isn't to other people. Curiosity and creativity, of course, again, as you're looking to find different ways to get things done, you develop that curiosity and become very creative. Management, I think a lot of people who have disabilities become empathetic. They develop that empathy, which is very important when you're managing other people. Accessibility and technology, having both of those to use as resources, people develop a expertise that others may not have. Communication and listening. So one of our, he was previously a board member and is blind, attributes his success as a negotiator to his well-honed listening skills, because he was not able to see people, he couldn't read their body language, that he learned to listen for the change in the tone of somebody's voice, and that helped him to determine when someone was ready to accept an offer. So, different things that people can develop as it relates, or maybe, it just comes naturally to them as a result of disability. So that takes us to the disclosure decision. So when is a good time? So assuming that you've decided that you're going to, when is the good time? And we know that and I'm going to talk most specifically about timing as it relates to the recruitment process, but we've talked a little bit about some requests that haven't gone very well, unfortunately, for accommodations or disclosing in school, and it could be in life. I mean, there are lots of different opportunities to disclose and to request accommodations, and so hopefully some of these examples will also apply to those situations. Our focus at Lime Connect is certainly more so on career, but know that disclosure can come up in lots of different situations, and it's something that's well considered, and it's a difficult decision, but hopefully this will give you some ideas about when and how. So when applying, so it gives you an opportunity to highlight yourself as a diverse candidate, and we recommend that anyone, especially who's applying to a job with any of our corporate partners, lets them know that they are a Lime Network member, that they do have a disability, because those companies have already made a commitment to hiring and supporting individuals with disabilities, and they've made a commitment to us, to Lime Connect. So it's certainly to people's advantage in those situations to highlight themselves as a diverse candidate. But there are other organizations and companies who are also looking to hire, to make sure that they are hiring diverse candidates, because it actually helps them to solve the problems that others might not have the right perspective to help them solve. It also shows that you've got a strong sense of your own identity, that your disability is part of who you are. Assessment. So we know that there are a lot of online assessment tools out there that are being used. I actually don't know of one that is fully accessible. And so if there's something that is going to be part of the recruitment process as you're applying for a job, and that's going to be to your disadvantage, then it would be definitely a good time to let someone know that assessment is not going to allow you to be successful, and to see what alternatives there are, or what accommodations there might be in order to complete that assessment. Prior to the interview. So, it's always great to learn as much as you can about what the interview will entail. And in some cases that can include a case study or a coding test, in which case you might need extra time. So that would be a good time to disclose, to make sure that you're going to have sufficient time to complete either one. If the next phase or the initial phase of an interview is a phone interview, and that's not going to work for you, so either you are someone who is hard of hearing, or you're someone who doesn't process information very well auditorially, and then you might want to recommend video, and in which case you may need to explain to them why. During the interview, so this is a great opportunity to highlight an accomplishment. One of a very common question during an interview is to talk about a challenge that you've had, that you've overcome, that you've successfully overcome. And so this would be a great opportunity to talk about something that's related specifically to your disability, and how you've been successful in managing that. Or to address an uncomfortable situation. So maybe you're someone who is blind or has low vision, and you're going into an interview where it will be difficult for you to maintain eye contact, or again, someone on the autism spectrum. And so rather than having people wondering if you are either not focused on them, not paying attention, or being disingenuous, or trying to avoid something, you can get ahead of that and let them know up front. A lot of people will wait, though, until they've received a job offer. And I think in a lot of cases, people feel more secure because they've already been identified as the primary candidate. So they have more confidence. They probably have a better understanding of what the role entails. And so will understand better what kind of an accommodation they may need. We always recommend, though, that if you have received an offer and you are pretty sure that you're going to need an accommodation, that you request that ahead of the start date, so you give the employer enough time to actually get whatever that support is in place for you when you actually start the job. You want to be able to start the job with the tools that you're going to need, and uh, and it can take time to get things set up so that you can move forward and perform at your best. Kim.
Yes. I had challenges with the hiring processes. One said that they want me to try to access my very difficult to reach specialist, which takes months to get an appointment. And it cost me money to prove I have a disability because, and I'm not joking with you, she says that people will cheat. So they need doctor's notes. They don't care how long it takes. Some employers will just leave if you say that it'll take you 6 months to get an appointment with the specialist. I had one which is a very crazy person because I kid you not, they told me, "Oh, tomorrow you'll be doing the assessment less than 24 hours later, and we want the medical proof before then." And I was like, "You gave me less than 24 hours. Nobody can get a doctor's appointment within 2 minutes. What the heck is this?" Yeah, they said that was the only time. That was it. They will not budge because this is the government. They're like, "No." I was like, wow. And you would
Mm,
think that people would be inclusive in all levels of government. No, all three were very discriminatory in one way or another in their hiring processes. It's almost like people have zero training in accessibility accommodations or even how to be an HR person for everybody, not just able-bodied people.
yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I know that these, those situations can happen anywhere, whether it's in the corporate world, in the government, um, and short of asking for to speak to somebody else in another area or to somebody's manager, which can sometimes work. I guess part of part of the question is that really where you want to work? If people are, if that's, if they're not willing to provide the support and accommodations. I know it's difficult. The thing that I will say is that I think this is a journey for a lot of companies. I think for the government, I know the federal government has come a long way. I don't know what it's like at the municipal and provincial level.
Provincial is
um,
absolutely zero,
yeah,
zero, because it's Doug Ford. He is the one who took away the medical notes
right,
being covered because that's the barrier that everybody has. These notes cost $30. Some of them are actually $1,000 to get an assessment in order to get a letter to say that you have a disability and what the problem is and things like
yeah,
that. It's ridiculous. Some of
yeah.
the letters are $200, $300 too. So it was just madness. I was like, no, like you need to stop being so addicted to the medical model. You need to focus on the social models for your employees, or if you're dealing with applicants, cover the expense of what you are demanding of them.
Yeah, no, it's very unfortunate, and we probably don't want to go down the political rat hole, so we don't need to talk
Oh,
to
it's not
get in.
the raffle. It's more of the human rights
Yeah,
code says we have to be
right.
accommodated, but it
Yeah,
doesn't even cover the hiring process because in order to have a employee relationship where this is where you get the accommodation rights to be being accommodated the right to be accommodated for a disability. But if you're just an applicant, so you have potential, you have no relationship with them, that doesn't get covered. But that's how you get in the door if you want
right.
to be hired. So that's like catch 22. It's like
Yeah,
ridiculous.
no, yeah. As I said, I'm very sorry to hear that.
I actually
Um,
advocated by saying last point, the email I drafted to one or two of them to explain how they were the one to create the barriers. So that in the future, if they ever encounter something similar to that, that doesn't become a problem again, and also for them to work on their processes. Because if you were not educated on something, you don't know what to do. But if somebody's giving you the template in how to do it and you're not doing it, you can complain down the road. See, I already told these HR people and they refused to change the process.
right, right. Yeah. Well, hopefully you took a step in providing some education for them.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Whoops, hang on. Um, so just I mentioned that we recommend that people request an accommodation ahead of employment. However, sometimes people don't know that they're going to need an accommodation, or things change. As an example, someone that we were just one of our network members who has actually been in his job or working for the same company for quite a number of years. When he initially joined, he did not request an accommodation because he didn't think that he would need one, and he also really wanted to have the opportunity to prove himself before he made that request. And but it wasn't that much longer after that he was given some additional responsibilities and then realized that he was going to need an accommodation, at which point he did make the request. So things can change, your job can change, your symptoms can change, so just needs in general. And so if you still, regardless of when it is, if you know that you're going to need an accommodation in order to be successful, then we strongly recommend that you ask for one. And, as we've heard, unfortunately, it isn't always a smooth process. And sometimes you need to look elsewhere and make decisions that are in your best interest for your own personal success. So, that's the unfortunate part of this whole process. So let's talk about the how. So there are I think, four key points to disclosing and requesting an accommodation. So first of all, the reason for the accommodation based on your specific needs, who the best person is to have the conversation with, to be able to simplify your disability, sharing both the advantages and limitations, and then when you make that request, that you offer solutions if you know them, because sometimes it's a new diagnosis. You're not sure yourself, but if you do know things that are already working for you, then to include that in the conversation. So the reason for the accommodation. So the most obvious one is the reason for the conversation, the most obvious one is to ask for an accommodation, but it could also be just to enhance a relationship. We develop relationships by sharing information about ourselves, not just our name and description, but information about things that our feelings and our situation, our background, our families. And that could also be about your disability. Yes, it makes us all a little bit more vulnerable, but I think that vulnerability also helps us to establish deeper relationships with people. It can also help to alleviate awkwardness or help people to understand how to better interact with you. So if there are things that you would like to have support with, or there are things that you specifically would not like to have support with, that you can let people know. And so that that when you're engaging with others, that they have a better idea about how best to interact with you. It can also help you to break stereotypes. So as I mentioned, we all have assumptions about things, about what people can and cannot do. And it can also help you to highlight the strengths that you have as as a person, with your unique abilities. And just to give you a quick example, I met with a young fellow, it's a few years ago now, but ahead of one of our networking receptions, We met on the street in Vancouver, and we walked over into he was going to SFU. We went into their downtown campus, and we were having conversation. He'd moved from Montreal to Vancouver. He really, really liked the outdoors, and that's one of the reasons that he chose to move. And then he was telling me that he's a very keen cyclist, which I always admire, because when I'm not dealing with a broken wrist, I'm a runner and have been for many years. But I admire people who do other things, who are active in other ways. And cycling has never been something that I've been particularly good at. And so he was telling me he'd recently been on a cycling trip from Vancouver to Whistler and back. So, which I was very impressed by. I don't know if any of you've been on that road, but the Sea to Sky Highway, it's beautiful, but it's very hilly and windy, and I would say kind of dangerous for being on a bicycle. And then he went on to say that the reason that he'd become such a keen cyclist was because he was not able to drive because he was legally blind. And up to that point, I had no idea. So he was wearing glasses, but I did not know that he was legally blind. And so it really changed my perspective, because one, I didn't think someone who's legally blind could be cycling. And so I'm not sure if he must have been cycling with somebody else, but we didn't talk about that. And two, it really showed me that he was someone who was very determined, and that if it was something that he was passionate about, he was going to find a way to achieve it. And so, it's just an example of how you can change people's perspectives, but also highlight your own unique strengths. Who is the best person to have the conversation with? Well, it could be a recruiter, it could be a hiring manager. Often when you're applying for a job, even on the website, it'll give you an email to request accommodations, or if you're getting an invitation for an interview, you'll get an email address to request accommodations. So, you just need to identify who that person is. Hopefully it will be obvious. You're not going to have to go searching for it, but it's good to know. And then some techniques for disclosure. So one, to simplify the science. Share only what's relevant to the conversation. Everyone doesn't need the medical certificate. Everyone doesn't need to hear the medical diagnosis. To be able to highlight your strengths, use a metaphor, and of course to practice, because the more you practice really with anything, the better you get and more confident you become. So simplifying the science, so explaining your unique brain. So for example, again, if you have executive functioning challenges, then to talk about that, but how you have overcome that. So what strategies do you use? What processes have you put in place to ensure that you're still able to stay organized, that you're still able to meet deadlines? How your spine functions. So maybe you're someone who has scoliosis, as an example. You need an adjustable workstation. You can't sit too long, or you can't stand too long. So you need something that that moves. If you're using some assistive technology, show them. I think a lot of people are interested in tools, those kinds of tools. But also, I think, as we've learned, that a lot of things are not just good for people with disabilities, but they're helpful for anyone. So here are some examples of metaphors, and I'm just going to, so we've got a few more minutes, but I do want to allow a little bit of time at the end. So some examples of metaphors. So if you're someone with dyslexia, it's like trying to read a story but only seeing every other word. ADHD, it's like your brain is an X, formerly Twitter, feed. You only operate in a 140 character space, and then you move on to the next feed. So these are ways to help someone else appreciate the impact that your disability has on you. And we know that everyone has a unique experience. So, I'm sure all of you who are dealing or have, have the effects of a brain injury, they're not identical. Everyone is a little bit different. Autism. It's like when you get a text from someone who doesn't use emojis, so you don't know how they meant to say what they said, how to read it, or how they felt. So this talks about a traumatic brain injury. My injured brain is like a broken tablet. It runs slower. It doesn't have as much memory, and sometimes it doesn't start up right away. So, if you're trying to explain to somebody why you need some additional support, or why, it's taking you longer to respond to something, this is something, you could have your own version of it, but that's why you're not, you're not procrastinating, you're not trying to be difficult, whatever it is. Mental health conditions. My depression feels like I'm driving on a foggy road and I can't find the exit signs to get off. My bipolar disorder makes me feel like I am on a roller coaster that only has extreme ups and downs, and it never flattens out. Blind or low vision. My sight is like you put both thumbs in front of your eyes and try to see around them. Or hearing loss. It's like being in a rock concert where you can hear the voices, but you can't make out the words. So focusing on abilities is really what we strongly recommend. So yes, you may want to and may need to disclose that you have a disability and how it impacts you, but you also want to focus on your abilities. So this is a collage of Lyme ambassadors, so some current, some past. They're all professionals, all successful in their own way in a variety of occupations. And so they've all learned to use and to be able to share their unique abilities. And so I think that's something that I think really all of us can benefit from finding that. Like, what are they? Everybody has them. What are they, and how can they apply? If it's the work environment, in life, and to make sure that people are aware of them. Like any one of these people, they don't want to be known specifically because of their disability. They want to be known because of who they are, which can include their disability, but also about what they're capable of. And remember that accommodations are a tool for success. So whether that's at school, at work, in life, 59% of accommodations cost nothing to provide. So for employers in particular, it's really just a matter of flexibility, or even, in some of the situations that have already been described to us today, people just need to be willing to be a bit flexible. And those accommodations that do cost something are often, and the majority of them are less than $500. So if you're thinking that you're going to be asking for something that an employer wouldn't be willing to give, in most cases, you're just asking them for some flexibility. And if you're asking for something more than that, then it's not really going to be particularly costly. And most employers are already accommodating others for a wide range of reasons. So not just because people have disabilities, but people have family commitments, and a number of other considerations. So it's not unreasonable to request an accommodation. And at the end of the day, you certainly want to be successful in an employment setting. Your manager wants to be successful, therefore they want you to be successful. The company wants to be successful, therefore they want you to be successful. So it's really all about getting the accommodations that you need to help you be personally successful and help those around you. So as far as resources go, if any of you are looking for accommodations and you're just not sure where to start, this is a great website. www.askjan.org. It's there's a list of accommodations like beyond I could even imagine. So it's there, and they get added. There are new ones added all the time. So it's a great resource. You may already know what works for you. You have friends and family that probably provide support, but also may have some ideas. And you can also, if you join the Lyme Network, you can also reach out to the Lyme community, because a lot of them use a number of things and are happy to share. So with that, I know we don't have very much time left, about 10 minutes. So if anyone's got questions, feel free.
Yes, and I'm happy to just stop the recording here if anyone would like to ask a question or add a comment.